There are some things that should never enter the human body if you're looking for optimum performance, and I consider the pure crystallized acid extracted from the sugarcane plant one of the most lethal substances. In his book, Pure, White and Deadly, Dr. Yutkin, he claims it should be banned. It is so dangerous. How is it dangerous? It gets the blood sugar level up very high, very fast, and then the body, to cope with this, sends a huge amount of insulin to get it out of the blood and into the cell. And now we're too low. And when the person's down there, what do? I have another bit of sugar, is that right? So you get this whiplash. And what's happening now, pancreases are wearing out far too soon. And then children are being born with weakened pancreases. There's really, the true pandemic on the planet is heart disease and diabetes, wouldn't you say so? That's the true pandemic. They're the #1 killers. And it's sugar. I'm not referring to honey, maple syrup, the natural or the coconut sugars. I'm referring to the pure crystallized acid that's been extracted from the sugarcane plant. I thank God that there are many alternatives. But if someone has diabetes, they can't even take those natural sugars until the pancreas is strong. Hybridized wheat. In the 1950s, wheat went through the hybridization process. What the scientists wanted, they wanted to create a plant with a high yield of grain to help with the starvation crisis. And they did. Remember, wheat used to grow that high? Most people today don't even know that. In fact, we had a wheat farmer do our program. His parents are wheat farmers. He's 25. He was shocked when I said wheat used to grow that high. You see, at first, it still grew that high, but it was such a heavy yield of grain that the stalks broke before they could harvest it. So back to the drawing board, and they eventually came up with a wheat that only grows that high, has a thick stalk, and it can hold the heavy yield of grain. We had a man do our program, and he said, my brother is a wheat farmer, and he's in his 60s, late 60s, and he remembers the old wheat, and he loves the new wheat. You know why? He can get 6 times more grain per acre. What's that? 6 times more money per acre. No wonder they love it. But what was never addressed was the effect on the body. This wheat went through intensive crossbreeding, but it bypassed the safety studies. Did you know that the COVID vaccine has totally bypassed all the safety studies? We've got to be cautious of things that don't go through safety studies. What it created was a starch structure that gets the blood sugar level up higher than even sugar. Let me show you. This starch structure is called amylopectin A. And amylopectin A gets the blood sugar level up very high, very fast, then you've got a corresponding dump. Let me give you something to compare it to. Amylopectin B is found in bananas and potatoes, and if you're familiar with the glycemic index of food, that gets it up relatively high, relatively fast. So the B, so this is the A. What's the B? The B is not quite as high, not quite as fast, not quite as low. And for the diabetic, they still want to keep away from the B. Amylopectin C is found in chickpeas or garbanzos, lima beans, black-eyed beans, lentils, all your legumes. So amylopectin C gets a nice steady rise. Sorry, I can't draw off the board or I'd be over there. There's your C. That's what every single cell in the body wants. It wants a steady, consistent, sure delivery of fuel. So let's have a look at the glycemic index of food, considering this. 55 is your baseline, so under 55 are your low GIs. So cherries, in fact just about all your berries, they sit at 25, whereas grapefruit, it sits at about 24. So people who want a nice low delivery of fuel, like your diabetics, they're your better fruits. Where does sugar sit? Sugar sits at 59, whether it's white or tan or brown. Where does white bread, let's have a look at white bread. So that's your refined wheat. It sits at 69. Oh, so your white bread will get the blood sugar level up higher than sugar. But what's a really shocker is whole wheat. So your whole wheat, it sits at 72. Now, how could that be? How could whole wheat get the blood sugar level up higher than white bread? Because it's not refined, it has more amylopectin A in it, and it's the amylopectin A that gets that blood sugar level up. One lady was talking to my husband and she said, how come Barbara says white bread's better than wholemeal bread? He said, what? Of course, whole wheat bread has more fibre. Of course, it has more B vitamins. What I'm referring to here is the starch structure. And it was the hybridization process that did it. You still can get ancient grains. The original wheat was called Enkenhorn, and you can still get that. Spelt, kamut. They're ancient grains. They haven't been hybridized, and so they haven't got this amylopectin A in them. If you want to pursue this a little bit more, there's an excellent book by Dr. Davis, William Davis. It's called Wheat Belly. And he gives the whole story of what happened to the wheat. He also quotes Dr. Norman Boulin, who got a Nobel Prize in the early 70s because of this hybridized wheat. And no one complains about wanting to have more food to save the starvation crisis, but the safety studies were never done. And this explains the absolute explosion that we're seeing in diabetes today. And what are diabetics told to eat? Whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, whole wheat. Are they healing? No, they're not. They're not.